So it's Wednesday, February 2nd, which in numericals is 0202-2022. And no, that's not part of my cell phone number, but wow, what a month January turned out to be. Take-Two, the publisher behind the Grand Theft Auto series, Red Dead Redemption, BioShock, Borderlands, NBA 2K, and more, acquired mobile publisher Zynga for a reported $12.7 billion US, one of the biggest in video game history at that time, and what a short time it was. Then Microsoft announced its intention to acquire Activision Blizzard for close to $70 billion US, instantly dwarfing Take-Two's acquisition significantly. Incidentally, the FCC is heavily scrutinizing the deal to ensure Microsoft does not have a monopoly in video game / digital entertainment space, which likely means somebody noticed the huge amount of cash on the table and could be presenting an obstacle to Microsoft to get a slice of that $70 billion cake. Obviously, I have zero evidence in that regard and am merely speculating, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if that was indeed the case. So yeah, we're still in January, the tail end, and on Monday of this week, Sony officially announced PlayStation is acquiring Halo and Destiny creator Bungie for approximately $3.6 billion US. And at first I was thinking, wow, Sony paid $3.6 billion for Bungie and Microsoft paid $7 billion for the publisher behind Elder Scrolls Doom, Fallout, and other popular IP, namely Bethesda ZeniMax. It looks like Microsoft got a better deal there. But that's until you realize just how valuable Bungie's expertise in areas that Sony have been historically weak are. So first-person shooters, multiplayer and service-driven games. So over the next several years, Bungie will prove invaluable to PlayStation, and let's be candid about this. The Destiny IP alone will easily recoup that initial $3.6 billion investment, though the biggest surprise to many regarding the Sony/Bungie acquisition is that Sony are actually allowing Bungie to operate under the PlayStation Studios umbrella as a multi-platform studio, for now at least. That means the likes of any potential Destiny 3 and other future Bungie projects will in fact release on other platforms, such as Xbox. This, in my opinion, is a super smart move by Sony, and let me explain why. Sony inherits a wealth of expertise and has access to Bungie's future IP, where Sony are bound to make a ton of money. I know a lot of people don't like service-driven games, and they certainly want games to remain exclusive, especially when you're paying $3.6 billion, but you've got to look at the bigger overall picture. Now, will there be PlayStation and PC only games coming from Bungie? Sure, I mean, technically releasing PlayStation games on PC makes those games multi-platform. The same applies to Xbox with its releases going to Steam, as well as Microsoft's own Windows platform. Now, I feel like I have to call out some of the nonsense coming from certain games media personalities, and I'm not naming any names, but if you have your ear to the ground, you'll know. So I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, I've noticed some are seemingly overjoyed that PlayStation is allowing Bungie to continue to develop multi-platform games under Sony ownership. Meanwhile, at the same time jumping with their cow over the moon because Xbox is keeping the likes of Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 and more IP exclusive to Xbox, and at the same time living on a hope and a prayer. The world's most popular first-person shooter / shooter multiplayer, Call of Duty, will one day no longer be available on PlayStation hardware. So it's a case of we'll take yours, but hands off ours. Where's that same energy in that these people are ecstatic that Sony are finally realizing exclusives are not that important when it comes to Team Green, Team Xbox? Oh yeah, Xbox needs those games to be exclusive to attract people to Game Pass, but the same doesn't really apply for Sony for some reason. Such hypocrisy. What is slightly bemusing is Bungie created Halo. Halo made Xbox what it is, and Halo now belongs to Xbox, of course. And Bungie signs a long-term deal with Activision Blizzard. Destiny becomes a huge success for Activision and Bungie, and Xbox announces it's purchasing Activision Blizzard, but doesn't get the Destiny IP since it belongs to Bungie, and now Bungie is owned by PlayStation. This is pure Twilight Zone material. Now look, joking aside, and although $3.6 billion could be perceived as Sony spending seriously silly money for just one studio, though Bungie isn't going to be the biggest investment Sony PlayStation make this year, far from it. it wouldn't be a stretch to expect the announcement of another major studio acquisition or two at PlayStation. Maybe we'll get some light cast on that rumored publisher Sony's apparently in the close of negotiations with. Maybe we'll hear something before the end of Q1 going into Q2. Maybe. What's obvious, at least to me, is that Sony have smelt that Microsoft coffee and no longer see PlayStation console unit sales alone as an effective way to grow in the market. Sony are seemingly biting the bullet and making moves for the future. So are exclusives dying a slow death then? Well, I certainly hope not, and I for one love the archaic console exclusive model. It's what I grew up on, though that's easy for me to say. I'm not thinking about this from a business perspective like Sony is. Now, I think exclusives will be around a while longer yet, but long term the picture gets a little hazy. Saying that, I do fully expect Bungie will develop PlayStation and PC only titles at some point under PlayStation, and you should already know that. And Bungie will also develop multi-platform service-based games across a multitude of other platforms. So those people getting carried away over exclusivity rights, well, it's a pointless exercise. The acquisitions Sony and Microsoft seem to be hastily making has less to do with directly competing with each other and more to do with locking Tencent, Amazon and Apple out. It would seem, at least behind the scenes, Microsoft and Sony are orchestrating cooperative maneuvers. In 2021, Sony acquired 5 studios, including Returnal developer Housemarque, Bluepoint Games, Firesprite, Nixes, and Valkyrie, and now Bungie. Both Xbox boss and more recently PlayStation boss and President Jim Ryan has made it clear there will be more acquisitions going forward. More to the point, the Game Awards creator and host Jeff Keighley shared via Twitter that he knows of a few major acquisitions PlayStation is negotiating on, and that 2022 is going to be a very interesting year. IGN, one of the many media outlets reporting PlayStation boss Jim Ryan, has said we should expect more studio acquisitions in the future in the wake of today's news that Sony is buying Destiny developer Bungie. GamesIndustry.biz writer and journalist Christopher Dring tweeted that Ryan said we should expect more when it comes to further PlayStation acquisitions. Now, in the full GamesIndustry.biz interview with Ryan and Bungie CEO Pete Parsons, which was published after Dring's tweets, Ryan said that Sony has many more moves to make. He also talked about Sony's ambition to grow its live services and grow beyond PlayStation's historic console heartland. Here's a quote. I've been on record talking about increasing the size of the PlayStation community and expanding beyond our historic console heartland. This can take many forms. We're starting to go multi-platform. You've seen that. We have an aggressive roadmap with live services and the opportunity to work with and particularly learn from the brilliant and talented people from Bungie. That is going to considerably accelerate the journey we find ourselves on. Interestingly, Bungie is working on more than just Destiny, and that the studio sees its partnership with Sony as an opportunity to build not just in the video game space, but in Sony movies and TV shows. Now, I know some like to imagine that the Bungie acquisition was some sort of panic knee-jerk reaction to the Microsoft Activision deal, but that is just simply not possible. Time scale and time frame and the window just won't allow it. The Bungie Sony deal had been in the works long before that, the past 5 or 6 months at least, so it's certainly not a direct response to Xbox. Whatever it is and whatever happens, Sony buying Bungie could be one of the keys to solving, if you prefer, plugging the PlayStation hole that is first-person shooters, or lack thereof. Though what say you? Let's continue the discussion cordially in the comments. Go ahead, sound off, share your thoughts and opinions on today's news, as that brings us to the end of today's video. And for all your gaming news, rumor, plausible speculation, hit the like button, of course subscribe, and yes, hit the notification bell to stay informed. And you can help us reach more gamers, feel free to share the video. You may want to consider supporting Foxy Games UK via Patreon. If so, thank you, and you can find the link in the video's description. And that concludes our time together on this Wednesday. Thanks for hanging out with me. Until next time, play games, not corporations.